All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it's Monday. It's time for the Monday morning conversation. I teased this on Friday that it was time. Like we always do this leading into training camp. We always do this at the end of training camp as we try to predict the 53-man roster. We've done it periodically throughout the offseason, and doing that always is Dave Schofield. He joins me. What's up, Dave? How's it going?
Oh, it's going all right, Jeff. It's just nice to be back with training camp.
Yes.
Things going on. Life is now busy and crazy doing what we do, but that's a trade-off. If you want Steelers football, you got to be ready to work whenever it's going on.
It comes with the territory, and I like how you headlined this 53-man roster. It is the pre-padded practice edition because training camp is underway, but they have not had a padded practice. They will do that tomorrow, Tuesday, and I think that's the first padded practice.
Yes, because today is an off day.
That is correct. So here we go. 53-man roster predictions. There were some changes. Some were out of necessity and some were because we chose to go in a different direction. But nonetheless, in case you're new to the program, we're going to go through this offense and defense. We're going to go through who we think is going to make the team, not just who, but how many players they keep at that position, positions that might be flexible, all that fun stuff. We're going to go through offense, all through the defense, and we'll even talk special teams. Let's start on offense. Quarterback, we both have three, but we have a different three for the second straight time. You like John Reese Plumlee. I think that's how you say his name. I like Kyle Allen as the quarterback three. What makes you think Plumlee over Allen?
It's fun to talk about right now, going into camp with the pads coming on. Why not talk about someone who has the athleticism to do some other things? Yeah. Where he's been, with OTAs, he was returning kickoffs and various different things. He played wide receiver some in college. Why not just look at it as excitement? I'll most likely eventually be going to Kyle Allen, but come on, you got to leave something behind for a little bit.
Well, there's an interesting caveat that almost had me agreeing with you and taking Kyle Allen out, and that is the fact that Plumlee, I believe, got drafted. If I remember this correctly, he got drafted by the UFL or something like that.
Second overall.
Yeah, and so if he doesn't land on a 53-man roster, he can choose. I think he has to clear waivers, and he can make that decision. But the Steelers might say, hey, we like this kid enough to keep him on the roster, maybe try to stash him on the practice squad, but I'm not there yet. But that was an interesting caveat I wanted to bring.
Well, and as long as he's even on a practice squad, which probably I'd have to look into it. Does that pay more than the UFL? I assume it probably would. And then there's the possibility of playing in the NFL. But even if you're on a practice squad, you're under contract for the NFL. Right. But to me, I've said this other places. Oh, people want to talk about a fourth quarterback on the practice squad, and the Steelers media talk about it all the time. Each year, it seems like it, and then the Steelers don't ever do it. So I'm not looking for that to happen. I'm looking it's going to be he either makes 53 or else he lands somewhere else.
There you go. All right, let's go to the next position on our predictions, and which, by the way, you can see this article at steelcurtainnetwork.com today, Monday. But let's go to running back. We both have three. We have the same three: Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson starting training camp on the non-football injury list with a hamstring injury that he suffered when training for training camp. Dave, anything to add here? There's really no changes.
No, I mean, someone else could emerge that then will make it interesting, but it'll probably take to a preseason game before that happens. That, one of those guys getting some carries in the second half has either busts off a big run or has a really nice yards per attempt. And then we'll talk about it. But until then, Patterson's got to be somewhere as a kick returner. It makes sense for him to be that third running back since last year. The Steelers' third running back got 0 rushing attempts.
Well, and agree or disagree with me, Dave. I'm going to say that if they do have someone show out in the preseason and it makes them change their minds, it's going to be in addition to the running back number to 4 and not someone leaving. You agree?
I would, just because of Patterson with that kick return, unless it seems like that's not going to work for him anymore. And there's no reason to believe that right now.
Okay, so let's go to fullback. Dave, you have Jack Coletto, and I have none, but with a caveat. I have none, but a caveat. You'll see that when we get to tight ends. But so you still think Coletto has a chance here?
Well, it's Coletto and Hayward that's working at fullback, and honestly, I don't see Connor Hayward as the traditional fullback that you would really want to use if you're going to use a traditional fullback. That's why I just think it's intriguing for now, where I'm like, hey, I'm not sold on that the Steelers would need a 10th offensive lineman, that they would need a 6th wide receiver, that they would need more than 4 tight ends, that they need a 4th running back. If any of those are the case, or even if they want to make it unbalanced and go with an extra defender, then I would get it. Until then, I'm kind of leaving a spot there, just out of wishful thinking that it would be nice to see the Steelers use a fullback a little bit more. And I don't think it had to be Connor Hayward.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I understand like the Coletto thing, and we've said this a million times, it's going to come down to special teams. If he can prove himself like a Derek Watt did at a time where he was a special teams captain, then he might have a spot on the team and it might be a fullback / special teamer. So we'll see. Let's go to wide receiver. We both have 5 wide receivers. Both of us had to make changes due to 2 players that we had making the team getting released. You had Des Fitzpatrick. I had Denzel Mims. So we both included Scotty Miller. What's your thoughts here?
It's really, to me, it comes down to number 5 or number 6. I don't see the Steelers. I mean, Pickens is obvious. Roman Wilson taking the 3rd round, obvious. Van Jefferson, that would be very surprising if he didn't make the team. CA3, same deal. They would be one of those. I'm shocked. The first 2 I mentioned there's no way they're not making the team. So it comes down to that 5th spot. Who's it going to be? And if they have a 6th spot, which I don't know that they would. So right now I'm thinking between Fitzpatrick, Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins. They're all fighting for kind of one spot right there. And he's the flavor of the week right now.
The thing for me is when I look at the wide receiver position, the biggest change I had wasn't that Mims is out and Scotty Miller's in. It's that I originally had on here, my analysis was that I think they're going to add a receiver. I don't necessarily think that anymore. I actually wrote that. I said, I don't know if they're going to make a move anytime soon. And so I think that they might just look at this wide receiver group and say, maybe we can manufacture, almost like in baseball, when you manufacture runs, maybe they can manufacture offensive production with who they have based on how they want to deploy those receivers. I'm not so sure, but I used to be sold that they were going to make a move and bring in a receiver. I'm not so sure on that anymore. So we'll see.
I wouldn't be shocked if they did. I just don't think it's going to be to the level that Steelers fans think it's going to be. They very well could pick up somebody via trade or the waiver wire at the end of the preseason, but it's not going to be the big splash that the fans thought was coming for a long time.
Right. Good point. Let's go to tight end. We both have 4. You changed your list. You took Cole Pruitt out and added Rodney Williams. I had Rodney Williams in from the start because I think he provides more special teams value. But Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, and Rodney Williams are our list now. What made you go away from Pruitt?
Well, the first time we did it, I did Williams. The second time was Pruitt. This time it's Williams. Probably may continue to waffle there, but it really, to me, it's not that Michael Pruitt can't make this roster. If he does, he's got to prove that he's more of a number 2 or number 3 tight end. If it's that last spot, I don't know that he brings the special teams like Hot Rod did last year. Even Connor Hayward, big special teams guys. If you're talking about having 4 tight ends and 2 of them are huge contributors on special teams, that means a lot. Now, these guys, they're tight ends. They're not defensive players. They've got to prove that they can handle stuff with the new kickoffs. So we'll see how it goes. But for right now, it's really about the special teams.
Exactly. And that's why I lean towards Rodney Williams the whole time. Let's go to the offensive line. We both have 9 players making this. Now, how we do all this different type of stuff, it just depends. Ultimately, it comes down to like Dylan Cook. That's where it kind of boils down to. How do you, as a person filling out this and going through this, how do you view Dylan Cook? You have Dylan Cook is in, Spencer Anderson out. I have Dylan Cook out with Spencer Anderson making the team. I could be swayed either way, Dave, but what made you make your decision?
Well, I mean, last time it was Cook, this time it's Anderson. It's so tough to come down to that. I think a more likely scenario is that they keep both of them and somebody else gets dealt. But I don't want to say that right now. I mean, the likely candidate would be, would before I said, no, it's crazy. The Steelers are starting the year with Dan Moore Jr. as their left tackle because they're not going to want to bring Fautanu in until midseason. Now the source tells us no, that might not be the case. If Fautanu shows he's ready to go, he'll go right off the bat. And if he is, and the Steelers really like Dylan Cook, then that's when they're saying, hey, why cloud the issue, especially if we've got a third tackle we really like. I know they really liked him last year, even though he didn't appear in any games, but they kept him on the 53 all year. So they like Dylan Cook. I'm not sure exactly what they would do if they're going to have all these guys. There might be someone that shows that's going to need to move on, or they got to go with who they think is most likely to sneak onto the practice squad. But there's going to be some kind of move that they're going to have to make there that I think is ultimately going to determine who I believe will be the 9, even though they really only have to have 8. And then at the same time, I also wouldn't be shocked if it's 10.
It's going to be really interesting. And this is the one position group people have asked me both on social media and in person, what are you looking for the most in training camp? And I say that it's the offensive line. I want to see everything from how they handle the offensive tackle position to who makes the team. How does the depth look? Is Nate Herbig an actual answer at center if they need him to do that? Can Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson snap the ball? All these things go through my head. I'm really curious to see how they handle the offensive line, but you make some good points about Dylan Cook and how he was on the roster last year. So that's it for the offense. Let's go to the defense, starting with the defensive line. We both made changes here, and you have Isaiah Loudermilk not making the team and DeMarvin Leal in. Now, I actually went in a different direction. I have Leal in as well, but I have Logan Lee not making the team. 6th-round draft pick Logan Lee. So Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, Dean Lowry, Montravius Adams, and DeMarvin Leal are who we agree upon. It's who we have out. So you think Loudermilk's out? What's your thinking there?
Well, I mean, the Steelers got to figure out what the L they're doing because, my goodness, it's going to be one of these L's between Lee, Loudermilk, Leal. And if you really want to throw it in there because of starting the season on PUP, Lowry. That's the only thing that then brings him into question. Because, to me, I looked at Lowry as the Armand Watts of last year that the Steelers had in for insurance. Didn't even have him dressed at the beginning of the season, and ended up being one of, if not their best defensive linemen. Him and to me, it was either him or Benton overall, just because of the high expectations we have for Cam Hayward. He's still, even when he was a shadow of himself due to injury, he was still really good. So it's these guys. And is it 3 dogs, 2 bones, one of those deals? But it's going to be a constant rotation of who it could be. There's always hope with the drafted players early on. I would not be shocked if Logan Lee doesn't make the team. It's not crazy for a 6th-round pick to be put in that situation. And right now, it seems like Leal is really hyper-focused this year on, having his body right, on being out there making a splash. And for me with Loudermilk, it's, hey, you've got to get going or your time here is done.
I'm just hoping that with DeMarvin Leal, they actually have given him a clear-cut role and direction for what they want him to do, because he screamed tweener when they drafted him out of Texas A&M, I believe. And everyone's like, well, is this guy going to play on the edge? Is he going to play on the interior? Figure out what you're doing with him. Isaiah Loudermilk is more of your traditional defensive end, defensive tackle for the Steelers. I think there's value with both of those guys. And if they can get Logan Lee onto the practice squad, I think he will have a massive amount of improvement in 1 year, just being in the system, understanding what it takes, learning from some of these players. But as we know, every single year, that's a risk. Trying to get this guy to clear waivers and then sign him to your practice squad is not a guarantee. But I think that we all hope that there's a lot more production out of this group as a whole in 2024. So let's go to outside linebacker now. Both of us kept the same 4 that we had the last time: TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and Jeremiah Moon. I think we're going to learn a lot about Jeremiah Moon when it gets to backs on backers when they had their first padded practice. But Dave, why did you keep the 4 that you had prior?
Well, just because I'm not ready to go in any other direction. I mean, whether you say Kieran or Kyron, however you say it, Johnson, that was on the 53 last year, mainly as special teams. he's a guy that a lot of people probably aren't going to think about and very well could be the next guy. I just think Moon offers more as an outside linebacker. And so if he can do the special teams, he could make a step in front there. And it also wouldn't shock me if they both do. And if this is one of those places where they go with 5.
Yeah, I could see that, but I want to see who they're going to, would they bring in, we talked about wide receiver, bringing in a player. Would they bring in a Marcus Golden towards the end of camp if he's still on the open market and they need a pure pass rusher that they know what they can do? I don't know.
I'll take a shot on that one right now. And I'm calling no.
Okay.
And the reason I'm calling no is you can't have your 4th outside linebacker be a guy that doesn't play special teams.
That's a great point.
Golden's not going to be brought in to be the number 3. That's Herbig's job now. So to me, bringing Golden in at the end, that speaks volumes of Herbig.
True.
That something didn't go right there. That I don't want to see that happening. But I mean, think about it. Golden was inactive last year for a game simply because of special teams, because they needed someone else for special teams to be active. So if I have to call the shot now, I'm going to say no because of where he lands on the depth chart and his lack of special teams ability.
Great point about special teams. I should have thought of that. But let's go to inside linebacker. This is a really difficult position group to deal with because you have Cole Holcomb, who's on the PUP list to start camp. And we know that's a pre-existing knee injury. Mike Tomlin said that in his opening press conference on Wednesday after the run test. I guess it comes down to, do you think Cole Holcomb will be ready when the season begins, or if you don't? So we both have 4. You have Patrick Queen, Landon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, and Tyler Matakevich, and Cole Holcomb being out, probably starting on the PUP list, which, correct me if I'm wrong, if he's on PUP all camp, he doesn't have to be on the 53, does he, to be moved to injured reserve?
Okay. Yeah, let's clarify this. First, let's talk, because there's a couple different things. There's in-season PUP. Once you hit the regular season and you're on the PUP list, that's another one that keeps you out an X amount of games. But you can't be on that list unless you were on the PUP list all through the preseason. If you aren't on PUP now, you can't be on that PUP list to start the year.
Okay.
So if he comes off at any time, then his only course of action would be go on the reserve injured list. They changed the rule this year. You can now have 2 players who you can put on the reserve injured list before cutdown day that can be designated to return. Now, they use one of your spots. I'm pretty sure it's 8 that you have throughout the season, regardless of, even if they don't come back. They instantly count as one of those 8 because you did it before the 53-man roster. So you don't have to go through that whole rigmarole of putting them on the roster, and then the next day you can then move them to IR and then sign somebody else. They don't have to do that now. So to me, with Cole Holcomb, the reason I'm saying with him being out due to injury, whether it's PUP, whether it's IR, it actually has to do more with what Coach Tomlin said after the first day of practice last Thursday, when he talked about, the guys that are day-to-day, the soft tissue guys, and he mentioned Patterson and Lowry. He wasn't even mentioning Holcomb as someone who could possibly be available. And that's why I'm like, they're looking at him being out a significant amount of time. I'm right now saying, as far as I'm concerned, he's not going to be on the 53 until I see him back. This is where I'm keeping him until I actually see him come back in practice.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I have Cole Holcomb in there. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think that if Cole Holcomb, like you have in your prediction, is out, it's going to be between Tyler Matakevich and Mark Robinson. And
absolutely.
May the best man win. And we talked about it a bunch. We're talking about special teams. So may the best special teamer win. And everyone might say, well, Mark Robinson's going to lose. Tyler Matakevich is like a special teams ace. Mark Robinson is really athletic and he's fast. He's probably faster than Matakevich. So there might be some value in that too. I wouldn't count out Mark Robinson just yet.
Yeah. The biggest thing is the Steelers really do need to upgrade the last linebacker spot. I mean, they couldn't put Robinson out there because instantly the teams are going to want to just throw the ball and go right at him. Unless he majorly improves that part of his game, he's simply not good enough to be an option to put on the field on defense. So you need someone that you can do both. Now, I don't know that Dirty Red is either. I really
Right.
don't. So that's just why I went with one over the other for now, and that's going to really shape up probably throughout the preseason games.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting battle to watch there for sure at inside linebacker. But nonetheless, both of us have 4. Now let's go to cornerback. We still differ. I had an extra roster spot because Dave had a fullback and I didn't. So I have 6 corners. You have 5. So you have Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, Corey Trice, Darius Rush, and BD Bishop. You have Sutton on suspension, so therefore he's out.
Yeah, he's not going to count the start on the 53.
Right. So in that case, I will probably have to wait. I'm going to wait and see who I like to add in there. I do have Cam Sutton on there because he won't count towards the 50. I have to remember that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. But I like Joey Porter, Dante Jackson, Corey Trice, Rush, and Beanie Bishop as well. Who's the other corner? His name is escaping me. That is also getting some time in the slot. If not Beanie Bishop, it's the other guy. I can't think of his name.
Yes, I'm trying to think of it while I'm looking at them. Is it Josiah Scott?
Yes, because he got a lot of reps at in OTAs.
Yes.
And so that's who I would go.
Pans out. I mean, and it's going to be different from day to day, even in practice. You can't just totally, go out. Oh, here's one practice where this guy's doing it so much. So to me, I think it'll speak volume whenever they go to line up. If everyone's healthy, how they go to line up the first preseason game.
So my question for you, Dave, real quick, because you coached football, I coached as well. How do you handle Cam Sutton in training camp when you know he's going to miss the first 8 games?
You don't give him any reps with the ones.
Yep.
Just because he's going to have to earn that spot come November. They might give him some reps with the ones just to do it. Maybe they do just to show other guys what should be done. Something of that nature, or from a communication standpoint. But to me personally, I would still have him out there, but it's not like, oh, this is your starting spot with the ones, but we're going to be without you. So anyone else is just to fill in. That's not the right but remember, I'm coming at this from a high school coach's standpoint that you don't want one kid thinking, well, this is my job. And when I come back, it's mine. You want them to think, hey, I'm going to really have an uphill battle to come back and get playing time when I can get back on the field.
Yeah, it's going to be, I agree 100% with the don't put in with the ones. There's no need to. He does get to come back, after week 6 of his suspension to get acclimated again. Is that correct?
Okay. You're partially right.
Okay.
He could come back to meetings and to work out after 4 weeks.
All right.
But he can't do anything to practice with the team until 6 weeks.
Okay.
So
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right.
So he can't get back on the field until 6 weeks, but he can get back in the building 2 weeks before that.
All right. So let's go to safety. We both have 5. We both had Trenton Thompson making the team. He is no longer an option.
Yeah. What was that, like 2 days after we read the last article?
He and Mims, I think, got
surprising because he was playing good last year. It's got to be something more with that injury.
Something happened, I'm sure. So Minka Fitzpatrick, Deshaun Elliott, DeMonte Casey, Miles Killebrew, and we both have Ryan Watts with Thompson out. And Ryan Watts, we'll see if he can get the job done. But is there anything you want to talk about with the safety group?
That one makes me a little bit nervous of going with these 5, unless Ryan Watts really shows that he's ready to play safety. Because Killebrew, he should be your, in case of emergency, break glass at safety, just because he's your special teams captain and you're all pro special teams player. So if you want to talk about who's going to make it for special teams, it's that guy. Remember last year, the number of people, if you were reading other outlets, 53-man roster prediction, that they would leave Killebrew out of the roster altogether. I'm like, come on. They're going to do it for special teams. They're going to do it for I think one time you even had him out. But I'm like,
I think
I'm not getting rid of this guy. And then he was all pro. So think about that. You can't get rid of him. But that also means you need able-bodied people to do what you need them to do. If they go with these 5, I would say look for at least 2 safeties on the practice squad. And it wouldn't shock me if you had somebody else that would be quote-unquote safety capable.
Yeah. And specialists, there's really nothing to discuss. Cameron Johnson, Chris Boswell, Christian Kuntz is the long snapper. And there you have it. Your 53-man roster. Dave, final thoughts here on this group.
I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
Because even, in his press conference on Thursday, Omar Khan definitely left the door open there as well. Patrick Peterson,
Yes.
if he's someone that comes in and helps, quote unquote, bridge the gap and everything with Cam Sutton, does he just go in your Cam Sutton spot?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I have Josiah Scott in there now. He would easily just wipe that out and just put him in there for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, you're right. You're right, because Omar Khan did not. He was very more open about that answer than he was anything else. So all the other questions that were asked were, yeah, well, we'll see. We're open. We're talking, blah, blah, blah. When they asked about Patrick Peterson, he said, you know what? We're open to it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I wouldn't be shocked if they make that move.
No, I think it's already a handshake, wink, wink. You don't want to be at training camp. We don't have to have you at training camp. We don't have to use up the roster spot at training camp.
Yep.
Just, we're keeping you on speed dial. And if anybody else calls you, please let us know first.
Well, and you combine that with what we heard from Bryant McFadden on the Steel City Insider podcast 2 weeks ago. And he made it very clear that Patrick Peterson is very much open to returning to the Steelers. And so it's like, okay, you can kind of see the dots there that we can easily connect. So we'll see, and we'll keep you up to date on that. But Dave, thank you very much for going through this 53-man roster. I do want to plug your show, Pittsburgh Standard Time, for anyone that hasn't checked it out yet. With you and Greg Bennett, it's been a phenomenal show. Is there anything you want to add to that or anything else you're doing at Steel Curtain Network?
Well, of course, it's a lot of work, so check it out because of how much work it takes me to do. I want as much people to see it. Every day, I am tracking training camp practice. Yes. And I am putting the posts, I should say posts, in their tweets. I don't know what we call them now that it's X, in an article for people to go and find easily, have them all there chronological of what's going on at practice and beyond practice. I'm trying to keep it down to where I don't have to go to a second one, but there's only so many post you can put in an article before the article starts to not load properly. We don't want to do that to you either. That is a labor of love for me. The people that like it, they really go appreciate it, check it out all the time. So it's there. If you don't want to have to go and weed through social media to get all the reports of what's going on with the Steelers during training camp every day at practice, just go to that article. I'm updating it like every 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes there might be a stretch of 15 in there, but that's because of that. That's so much of a labor of love. Make sure you check it out and utilize it because I'm really doing it for you all. And of course, Pittsburgh Standard Time that's my fun show to do with Greg. Scobro Show is my fun show to do with my brother. And then Steelers Preview is my fun show to do with my two Steelers buddy, Jeff and Brian. I've got that. But now when the season's coming in, you'll catch me more with Mike Tomlin press conference recaps and last minute thoughts as we lead up to the games, things of that. You're going to be tired of hearing from me and hearing this voice. So that's why I'm glad Jeff got this out of the way when he did now before you all get sick of me even more.
Well, and we'll be doing it again by the end. So you're going to hear from Dave at least one more time on my show during training camp. But still, Dave, thanks for your time, man. I appreciate it. We'll be talking soon. Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.